nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hey guys, welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Just let's put that up there instead. On cue, Timmy is ready for his ASMR. So what we want to do in this analysis is really look at the crime scene photos, which are all have been on display during day 3 of this case. So we're gonna do it in 2 ways. We're gonna go through the crime scene photos outside of the trial. In other words, we're gonna look at them, and then we're gonna go through them with the detective giving his opinion and to some extent some context. What's kind of weird is the detective's not really testifying as an expert. So the other thing that's kind of weird is what is the probative value of this evidence in terms of Michelle Troconis? I mean, was Michelle Troconis present at this crime scene, right? So it is definitely on the weird side. In any event, let's go through a couple of the crime scene images. This is one of the clearest images I could find of those blood stains that the officer noticed on the grille of the Land Rover. And as you can see, it's got quite a weird pattern on it, right? Almost as though something like an absorbent fabric that had already soaked up the blood somehow fell onto the grille or touched onto the grille. Do you agree with that? In other words, doesn't that look like a transfer smear? It's not that the blood landed there to begin with. Someone passed by and perhaps dropped something onto the front of the grille. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you agree with that? Just a quick hi to everyone who's here. Stephanie, Sharon, who else? Kathy, Mel Stiller, Chelsea, good to see you. Zircon, good to see you guys. Run the World, good to see you from Encinitas, California. Am I pronouncing it right? Or is it Encinitas? How do you say that? So let's continue. Do you agree that this looks like almost like the weave of a paper roll that is printed on the grille, and it's got almost the same. If you almost imagine a roll that has been soaked in blood, and someone let it fall, that it would make that kind of print on there. It could also just be a cloth, right? But you agree that is probably not an original blood stain that landed on the grille and then was wiped away. These are secondary stains. Kathy says yes. Okay. So we'll go through a couple of others. Yari's pointing out the stains that were left. It looks like a shoe print. And invariably, he will say, his name is Detective Riley, he will say whether he thinks it's a conclusive for blood, positively testing for blood. And some of them are and some of them aren't. This is some of the blood spatter analysis that was done. Do you notice there's something white under the tire over there? there's a little yellow marker there, 44, evidence marker, and then there's a little white scrap over there. Do you notice that? See if I can pull up number 44. Now look carefully. You see evidence marker 44, and then there's a very small scrap of paper there. That is not the same as these stickers. That is part of the crime scene. Now have a look at this. Isn't that incredible? That is a piece of the tissue that's actually been left behind, a tiny fragment of tissue. There's a little bit of blood on it on that side. There you can see it's evidence marker 44. And what I find extraordinary with this sort of thing is you start seeing the crime scene from, I don't want to say a microscopic level, but from a micro level, from a perspective that's a lot smaller than when the cops just walk through the crime scene. They walked through the crime scene and they didn't really see very much. At least they saw something. They didn't see nothing. But when you looked even closer, you actually can't believe how much evidence was left behind. It's an orgy of evidence. There's evidence everywhere. There's evidence on the faucet in the kitchen. There are paper rolls lying all over the place. There's blood evidence on the outside of the garbage cans, and so on. That is a reference to the door where they put a lot of that powder that they use to test for fingerprints. We'll get to that. That is I think that is a photo of the floorboard of the Chevy Suburban. Now, although this looks green, this strip over here looks green, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's actually silver, but it's reflecting the green right next to it. So although this looks green, it's actually just silver reflecting these leaves and things next to it. And isn't that a very clear drop of blood right there? Something that is a little bit inexplicable to me is I was listening to some of the arguments right at the beginning. From what I understand, no blood tests, no testing was done of the inside of the Toyota Tacoma, which is crazy. And so if there was blood evidence in the garage, blood evidence in the Chevy Suburban, well, then all of that takes you in a certain direction, only to end up at a dead end because everything was transferred to the Toyota Tacoma only for that to be cleaned and no evidence examined from there. And so you can see the prosecution have got their work cut out for them in order to prove their case. So we're just going through these quickly out of context. These look like they could be handprints and fingerprints possibly. It's on the edge of the door. And what you can almost imagine happening here is possibly a tussle going on at the door. Possibly Jennifer's trying to close the door and keep Fotis out. That is assuming Fotis got in via the garage door. He could have got in through a side door as well. He could have got in through this door. So just some more, they're doing a combination of fingerprint evidence and DNA and blood and DNA, right? This, I think, was positive for blood as well. But what is quite frustrating in this case is how many things are sort of rust colored or brown, and they're not, and it's not blood. But I think that aside, the amount of blood evidence is actually astonishing, given how little evidence there seemed when the police first walked through. So the garage is full of blood, which is why, I mean, not just little drops of blood, but seemed to be pools of blood that had been mopped up. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, part of the evidence that they seized were mops. So it did seem like the victim lost a substantial amount of blood that would have not have been survivable. There is the bay where the Range Rover was parked. You can see there was some evidence underneath it, but not very much. So I think that might be that little scrap of tissue. There's also an evidence marker there, so I'm not 100% sure. But it just shows you how subtle a crime scene can be, how carefully you've got to look. The evidence is there. You've just got to look carefully. And do you remember the officers used flashlights, and they were pausing to some extent to look at what was going on? Timmy, I hope you're not transferring any ticks to me. I've already found one on him. And so that is one of the tricks of the trade, in a way, is when someone has cleaned up a crime scene, how good are you at subtlety? You know, you shouldn't be looking for bright red blood stains. You should be looking for diluted, semi-wiped away evidence. Like that. And so I think when you start identifying blood that has been wiped, blood that has been cleaned, then you start to know which filter through which to see the crime scene. In other words, you're not looking for bright red stains. You're looking for slight discolorations on the, well, in terms of on the concrete floor. And I must say, I was astonished by the evidence left on these bins. I think that's a mop lying over there. Is that a mop, or is that it might actually be a sports, might be a lacrosse stick, could be that as well. But I was really astonished that you could have evidence on both of these bins. It just shows you, as fastidious as the murderer was, he actually left behind so much evidence. And it just shows you 2 hours cleaning this up wasn't enough. He probably needed another hour. And if you look at this, even though we know what to look for, can you see anything? So if you know that, if someone tells you, well, there definitely is blood evidence on the outside of this bin, can you see it? And it's apparently over here, and I think over there. So very subtle once again. So you get the idea that blood was left on this bin in the process of opening it and closing it and opening and closing it, and wiped away perhaps a few times, but very thin layers of diluted blood were left behind. And that is actually what they noticed in the crime scene in the Patrick Frazee case as well. They noticed that there were films where someone had cleaned, so where someone had cleaned the couch, where someone had cleaned the television. In her haste, Crystal Kenny had left trails of the cleaning. So if you'd wiping trails, let's put it that way. So if she'd wiped like this, there were thin lines that had shown that someone had wiped over here and wiped over there. And so I always say part of the evidence is the cleaning. Cleaning is part of the evidence of a cover-up. And that's what you want to look at. You want to look at impromptu washing, impromptu doing the laundry, impromptu taking a shower. And so there is pointing out the exact position on this bin. I think it's the left-hand side one, where some blood evidence is left behind. That's in plain sight. I mean, that is not on the ground under a vehicle. That is kind of in plain sight. You simply need the attention to detail to see it. And then there's the other one, right? And you can see, even to the naked eye, it's tricky. It's a slight discoloration. And if you look at the imperfections over there and elsewhere, I'm not sure if that would be it as well. But if you look at the imperfections on this bin, it's somewhat camouflaged by the things that aren't of probative value. And so when we're looking at this after, with the benefit of law enforcement having collected it, it may seem pretty obvious and might seem pretty easy. But when you don't know what you're looking for, when you're faced with just a blank room, it's not that easy. Of course, things like luminol and black lighting, that can definitely make the job a lot easier, right? So here's some additional evidence. I think that is it over there. But think about how obvious it is. Such an obvious place to dispose of evidence and such an obvious place to leave evidence behind. And the interesting thing to ask is, was any evidence found inside these trash cans? In other words, did they find anything on the inside? Now, you might say yes, or obviously, but not necessarily if it is already placed in a sealed garbage bag. But what I think is quite interesting with these trash containers is it's already telling you something about the next phase of the crime. In other words, the attempt to put cleaning materials in trash on the scene is letting you know, and there are two of these receptacles, is in a way pointing you to the fact that the same thing is happening elsewhere. And that is to some extent how a crime scene can be predictive of the extended crime scene. And I've often said, in the Madeleine McCann case, it looks like Madeleine's DNA is first behind the couch, and then it's in the parents' cupboard, and then it's in the rental car. All of that is an improvement on the previous place where the DNA is left. So if someone is trying to hide Madeleine away, they seem to be getting better at it with every step. Behind the couch is not the best solution. In the cupboard is a better and more secure solution, but it's certainly not a permanent solution, and so on and so on. So a crime scene can predict potentially what is happening beyond that crime scene, if that makes sense. So there you can get another little bit of an idea of the slight color on this black surface. Over there seems to be a little bit over there and over there. And so from a distance, can you easily see that? So we're going to go from this to the detective walking us through, and I haven't shown you all the crime scene images. We'll go to some more of them in a moment, but let's first look at what he says about, and I must say I found this pretty shocking. The first one that they discussed on trial day 3. Let's go to that now.
Detective Riley, how are you? Good, ma'am. Thank you.
Just to recap a couple questions, if you can take a look at the screen behind you. Again, states 9, file 4, picture 8.
So what do you think we are seeing in that picture? What do you think evidence marker 13 is referring to?
And briefly, if you could just describe what's depicted in that photograph.
Yes, that's a paper towel roll that I found on the counter of the kitchen island at 69 Wells.
So there you have a towel roll on the counter. And remember what I said right in the beginning. Could this have been left by a towel roll like that? Let's see if I can bring it back again. Now, you can't really see the weave on it, but what I'm trying to suggest is if a towel roll like this, which is quite elongated, fell into a puddle of blood and then fell onto the grill, could it have left behind this sort of mark like that? That's the question.
And the 13?
The 13 is a evidence placard that denotes it's going to be seized as State Police Exhibit 13.
Terry, good to
And
see
did put
you.
that 13 there.
Yes.
Picture 9. What does that depict?
That depicts some of the blood-like stains I found on the paper towel roll.
So if you look at this weave, and I've got to tell you, I'm seeing this particular image for the first time. I saw the previous one. I haven't actually seen this one. Do you agree that this strange pattern on here, look at that, the pattern there and the pattern there, is a match, or looks like it could be a match for this, for that. And you can also see it's got a repeated coil type pattern. It almost looks like it could be steel wool as well, or even some kind of kitchen cloth that has a kind of a repeating pattern. And I mean, an easy way to test that is to take the paper towel, just in order to know that you can exclude that, and dip it into a liquid and try and see what kind of imprint it leaves behind, right? What do you guys think? Do you think it is that, or do you think it could be something else? Look at these fine lines that are over here. Do you think it's the same thing?
Now, sir, did you?
So Susan says it's not similar in my opinion. So if you say it's not, what do you think it is? And of course, there could be several kinds of paper towels. There could be another kind as well.
Do anything with that paper towel holder?
I field tested it for the presence of blood, ensured it was photographed and documented, and then I packaged it.
Okay. A couple of questions if I can.
Yes.
When you say field test, what does that mean?
So before he answers that, I must say my mind goes to the kitchen table in the Ramsey case where the flashlight is sort of on the kitchen counter. And in my mind, especially dealing with the Ramseys, it sort of feels like that's there to make you think it's part of the crime scene when it's actually not part of the crime scene. Just like the ransom note, you've got a ransom note that's very explicitly present, but it's taking you in the wrong direction. Whereas, do you think the same thing applies here? Do you think the paper towel was left there on purpose?
I field tested it for for blood. I use a screening test called the Kastle-Meyer test.
No my objection.
Thank you. And for this test, I use 2 chemical reagents, phenolphthalein and hydrogen peroxide. And
If you can just walk me through what exactly is a Kastle-Meyer test?
it's a presumptive blood test.
Why would you object, Your Honor? And
So a couple of you are saying it could be a shoe print, it could be a sweater print. All of those are possible, but think about what is most probable. There's an elaborate cleanup operation taking place. Do you think someone tried to clean with their shoes? Do you think it would be natural for a shoe to get to that level? Who knows what shoes Jennifer was wearing at the time? That's also quite an interesting point. Could that be a pattern of rubber gloves?
the lack of foundation in this testimony?
Well, question is, what is this field test? And the objection is,
There's a lack of foundation. This witness can, well, I think the question is, what is a Kastle-Meyer test? Well, I thought the question was.
If I can, Your Honor, I'll withdraw it and go back. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Sir, have you received any training with respect to?
So if we just pause for a second, where are we in this trial? We're on day 3. We are trying to determine whether Michelle Troconis, Fotis Doulos' girlfriend, she was living with him. She had a daughter living with him as well. She was kind of his colleague. You know, they worked in the same office. She did work for him, and we're going to deal with that. I'm not sure if we'll deal with that in this analysis. You know, in terms of her motive and her involvement. I've got quite a lot of research here. I don't really want to deal with that right now, but the issue is what connects her to Jennifer Doulos, and in a similar way to the Lori Vallow case, they spent a heck of a long time. I was in court during parts of that case. They spent a heck of a long time talking about the texts and evidence and circumstances surrounding the murder of Charles Vallow. And she was present when that happened. Lori Vallow was present when that happened. There's very little certainty about where Lori Vallow was when the kids disappeared, when the kids were murdered, also when Chad's wife was murdered. By the way, Chad's lawyer, John Price, just withdrawn from that case, saying that his client doesn't have any money. I don't know if you guys know that. And in the Alex Murdoch case, he's wanting a retrial. We'll see if that happens. So quite a few shenanigans are taking place in different courtrooms. But basically, what they are doing here is they seem to be creating certainty in the jury's mind. First of all, that even in the absence of Jennifer's body, and I think you'd agree that even in the absence of her body, there's plenty of evidence that something awful happened to her. It's not one drop of blood somewhere, which could have happened from stubbing your toe. It's not one drop of blood. It's blood all over the place. And on top of that, it's someone who seems to have gone to a lot of trouble, a lot of effort to clean up blood and throw it into something, and then take that something and put it into somewhere else, and then drive somewhere and put it into somewhere else and somewhere else, right? And so it's the cover-up of the crime that they're really trying to illustrate and make such a elaborate mosaic that it becomes very clear in the mind of the jury, first of all, that Jennifer is dead, and secondly, the massive cleaning up operation that this involved. And if you think about it, probably the biggest mistake Fotis made was murdering with such a vicious bloodbath. If he'd murdered in a more clinical way, then, for example, a single bullet wound, then he wouldn't have all of this evidence running after him. And of course, that's the reality of this particular crime. So if you think that his murder was particularly sadistic, particularly and unnecessarily cruel, and I'm not saying if you kill someone in a painless way, that's nice, and compared to killing someone in a cruel way, I'm simply saying him indulging his own sadism actually sank him, right? And it's as a result of this orgy of evidence just in the garage. There's a heck of a lot of evidence, but what we're dealing with now is evidence beyond the garage. We're dealing with evidence in the kitchen, evidence. Well, let's have a look.
You conducting presumptive test.
Yes, I have.
What training have you received?
I'm
gonna jump a little ahead.
Both at the State Police Forensic Lab.
I'm going to jump ahead
And what was the result?
The test was positive.
to there.
Actually, I should ask you.
It's important to think intertextually. So Mel says, well, the neighbors would have heard a gun being fired. Well, I thought because no neighbors heard a gun fired in the Letitia Store case, that there was no evidence that a gun was used, although I thought a gun probably was used. And it turned out a gun was used, even though the neighbors didn't hear anything. So neighbors don't necessarily hear loud sounds or remember them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And especially in a scenario where there's a lot of space between one house and another, like the Morphew residence. I mean, that's quite a good comparison. Was Suzanne Morphew shot? Well, the likelihood is very high. She was living in a house, and there were a lot of guns in that house. The likelihood is quite high. Did neighbors hear a gunshot? Is there any evidence of gunshot? No. Right? And so you've got to be careful saying if there wasn't a witness hearing something, that means it didn't happen. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that.
Do this, sir, if I can. With respect to the kitchen area of 69 Wells, did you seize anything else in that area?
Yes.
What did you seize?
I found another blood-like stain on the faucet.
So he's going to show us the faucet in a moment. And I must say this part of the evidence reminds me, I just saw it very, very quickly, reminds me of the Amanda Knox case. It's got the same, it just rings a lot of bells in the Amanda Knox case.
And is that the kitchen faucet?
The kitchen faucet on that center island.
Actually going to draw your attention, sir, to the screen behind you. States 9, file 3, picture 10. If you can, just explain what.
So when you look at that image, can you see anything? How long does it take you to see what you need to see on that photo? I mean, you can look at it from one end to the other. Eventually you see there's a sticker there. But can you see it? And there's looks like something over there, perhaps a discoloration. I keep imagining there's a tick walking over me because of this dog. But anyway, what can you see? And bear in mind, it's a very shiny, silvery material. If there's any surface that should be extremely easy to see blood evidence on it would be a kind of a mirror surface.
What's depicted in that photograph?
This is the kitchen sink faucet on that island in the kitchen. And what you see there, marked by a adhesive label marked Exhibit 79, is the location of a dilute blood-like stain.
If you can, could you?
Okay, did you hear that? He said a dilute blood-like stain. And so that is what you'd expect. You'd expect it to be, again, not bright red. And the fact that it's diluted means it's almost invisible. It's a slight pinkish film over the faucet, right? And what that tells you is there's a lot of washing going on, a lot of, besides mopping up the blood, there was water that was being used, probably cleaning products, and you have a lot of the same thing in the Amanda Knox case, where you see blood, it's kind of a very light color. So where Rudy Gaudet apparently ran out the house and left behind shoe prints. The shoe prints are so light that they're almost invisible. In fact, the shoe prints remind one of a lot of the prints in the garage here. In other words, what that's telling you is that someone cleaned away those prints. There's also looks like 2 fingers made an imprint on the wall. That's quite clear. But then there's also quite a lot of blood on the basins in the villa that is a very diluted color. And what that's telling you is that blood has been already washed substantially. And I find that quite interesting, because did that mean Rudy Gaudet cleaned his crime scene up, ran out the house, and then came back and cleaned up his own shoe prints? Did he do that, or did somebody else do that?
Would you please, Your Honor, may I
Yes.
ask him? Sir, if you could approach the screen, please, and just point out to where you're addressing.
Well said.
It's right in this area.
Okay, lower right-hand corner. I'm actually going to scroll in.
So there we've got a lot more of a bright.
If you can, sir, there's a,
So can you see how hard it is to see that particular evidence?
white, I guess, ruler.
I'm imagining it's sort of here, but I mean, that is almost microscopic. Can you see? It's really almost microscopic. It's, I guess, something here. And if I didn't know better, I would say, no, I actually don't think there is any blood there. It just looks like water droplets.
Marking there, did you put that there?
Yes.
And EX,
So there is a better angle, and I mean, what are we actually looking at here? Is it on this side? Is it there? Is it there? I think it's this piece over here, but it certainly, to the naked eye, hardly looks any different. And if we can't tell, looking at it zoomed in, you can imagine that the killer, having cleaned up after himself, didn't notice this either.
79, what does that mean?
That's just our designation, and it's going to be State Police Exhibit 79.
And the marking that drew your attention, is that located on the screen with it zoomed in?
This area here, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
So it looks like it could be
What
there.
did you do, if anything, with respect to that area?
This area was field tested, again, using that Castlemeyer test. And the area was marked as an exhibit. And then I later collected a sample of this stain with 2 swabs that were moistened with sterile water.
Okay. Couple of questions on that. You tested it utilizing the same procedure that you just testified to?
Yes, it's always the same procedure.
Did you wear gloves while you did so?
Interesting.
And any other protective gear?
Just gloves.
Now, with respect to the.
There's also a slight
Castle
mark
Meyer-
over
can I-
there.
Can I call it KM?
Yes.
Is that okay? With respect to the KM test, what was the result?
The test was positive.
And you
So did you get that? We're not just looking at an interesting configuration of blotches. It did test positive for blood.
indicated you took 2 swabbings. Was that after the test or before?
After the test.
And why 2?
We take 2 swabbings just for more sample, to collect more sample.
With respect to this, this kitchen sink area, did you take any more samples or seize anything on the sink faucet?
Yes, up in this area here, we found another dilute blood stain.
Picture 11,
Yes.
if you can, sir. Could you please point out where and what you see in that photograph?
So is it really so surprising? You have a serious event taking place in the garage, and our hearts really got to go out to the victim here. You know, she arrives home from dropping her kids off at school on a Friday morning, it's 8:05. Seems like a beautiful day in May, and the next thing she's in a life and death, kind of an unexpected life and death battle, just like Shanann Watts was, and she's injured. There's loss of blood, and is it really so surprising that the perpetrator would go from the garage to the kitchen and wash his hands and try and get some of the evidence of this encounter, this criminal encounter? You know, if he's going to clean up the crime scene, he's also going to clean himself up. So is it really that surprising that he would go to a basin and turn on the faucet and look for water, and is it really that surprising? In fact, you would imagine the logical thing to do here would be to say, from the perspective of this crime scene, where's the closest faucet, and let's check that for evidence. And it would make sense to do that with any crime scene where it happens in a home, inside a home.
Yes, this is the loop blood-like stain we found.
What did you do, if anything?
Again, the area was initially field tested.
So again, to the naked eye, can you see anything there that looks like a blood stain? If that evidence marker wasn't there, Exhibit 14, would you know that there was a blood stain there? And that's why we've got to be careful, where if you don't see something, it doesn't necessarily mean nothing's there. If you don't see something, it's not proof that nothing is there. And that is what makes crime scenes so difficult. For example, the crime scene in the Madeleine McCann case and the John Benet Ramsey case. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. In fact, not seeing something is almost more of concern than when you do see something. When you're not seeing something, when you expect to see something, what's going on?
Using that KM test, the test yielded a positive result.
Could I just have a continuing objection so I don't have to keep interrupting on this issue with regard to the presumptive?
Thank you, overruled.
Susan
And,
says if that
following
little
the
goldfish
test,
could
I
talk.
marked it as Exhibit 14, and later collected it with that same process of utilizing 2 swabs.
And with respect to the kitchen, sir, anything else in the kitchen area?
Yes, they're down below in the cabinet underneath the sink.
So we're going to go below the cabinet. Do you notice under every one of these is a napkin under there, under there, under there, under there, under there, and does make you wonder, did the perpetrator make kind of a bloody mess here, clean everything, and then put these napkins in place? Or was that typical for Jennifer Farber to do that?
We found some items of interest.
States 9.
And this again, I've written 5 books on the Amanda Knox case. This definitely brings back memories of the Amanda Knox case, which involved mops and buckets and bleach and cleaning floors at odd hours of the day, also on a weekend. Why are we looking at pictures of bleach kind of thing?
12. What does that depict?
This depicts, looks like exhibit 15, which was a blood-like.
So what do you think we're looking at there? Are we looking at what's in the cupboard, or are we looking at possibly a bloodied print on the handle of the cupboard where all these cleaning products are? And so the question you kind of want to ask again is, the perpetrator has murdered Jennifer. She's now deceased. And in the immediate aftermath to that is a lot of blood. There's blood all over the floor. There's blood all over her. There's blood on the vehicles. There's blood on him. And what's the next thing that he does, right? He can take his time because no one's coming home there for a while. He can take his time. What is he going to do next? What tools is he going to need before he leaves? Bear in mind, once he leaves, he can't really go back there. So what is he going to do in the aftermath? Well, I think it's a very similar thing to what Chris Watts did on Monday night. What do you think Chris Watts did through the night?
Stain that we found on the handle.
Sir, if I scroll in there, do you see?
It could have been
point
Jennifer,
out,
yeah.
Or is that blood-like stain shown on that?
Yes, it's this area here.
What did you do?
So there's a blood-like stain over there as well. And what the prosecution are showing is just this blood trail that is going from the garage to the kitchen. You're seeing someone that is trying to cover over their tracks. And guess what? The same thing happens with a vehicle. There's a blood trail to the vehicle, in the vehicle, and then that trail is also cleaned away. How do you clean away a blood trail in a vehicle? Well, you wash your car.
If anything?
Again, it was field tested with KM.
True.
Positive test result. It was marked, photographed, and collected with that same 2-swab process.
And it says EX15. What does that mean?
State Police Exhibit 15.
Now, do you guys remember when we watched the original body cam? The officers entered the house. It was a missing persons case, and they looked everywhere. They sort of looked everywhere. And although they did see a little bit in the garage, you kind of got the sense that maybe nothing serious had happened to her, because there was a little bit of blood somewhere, but there was no disarray anywhere, right? And you kind of got a sense that if there was any evidence anywhere, it was the garage. Why they're looking anywhere else? Here's the answer. But the thing that you really want to think about, that law enforcement should be aware of, is they should think about reverse engineering a crime scene. So in other words, what would be priority areas when someone commits a crime? And the answer is washing up areas, drains, the inside of a washing machine, trash cans. Those are all areas where you would want to pay particular attention.
Inside, I see there's a yellow placard, 17. What does that mean?
We found 2 items of interest in there
Actually,
inside the cabinet.
if I can, I'm gonna go back one, actually, if I can.
Sure.
I'll just show you 14. If I can, states 9, picture.
So there's a toolkit for a murderer post-crime. I need some nitrile gloves. I need something for my hands. I don't want to leave additional fingerprints. I need bleach. I need cleaning products. There they are.
Picture 14, please, in file 3. You can explain what that photograph depicts, please.
The two items of interest that we collected from underneath the sink were Exhibit 16, which was a pair of latex gloves, and Exhibit 17, which was a box of white plastic trash bags.
Did you make the decision to seize 16?
Yes.
Why?
The gloves had a texture to them, they're dishwashing gloves, and
So just in terms of Matt's comment, not necessarily the cover-up, but maybe the disposal was planned to some extent, because let's face it, they haven't found Jennifer's body. So I believe that part was premeditated. Maybe a hole was dug, maybe Fotis knew that there was an excavation somewhere. And, the question posed in the title of this video is, does Michelle know where her body is? And it's possible that Michelle knew what projects Fotis was working on. And it's possible that if she had that insight, that she could point investigators in the right direction. On the other hand, I'm not sure if he would disclose something that could implicate him, even to his mistress. I'm not sure if he would tell her. On the other hand, is at the third hand now, if he was disposing of all of this blood evidence with her sitting right next to him, what do you think? Does she really not know that there's a body, and does she really not know where it is? And did she really not ask him?
Previously on our walkthrough, we found a blood-like stain pattern in the garage on the floor that appeared to be a glove print, and the print appeared to have some sort of texture to it. It was somewhat similar to these gloves here.
And the 16, what does that delineate?
Again, State Police Exhibit 16.
And 17?
17 is the box of hefty trash bags.
Did you make the decision to seize those, sir?
Yes.
Why?
Just because we found what appeared to be.
So I think the 17 refers to this box of trash bags. I must say I didn't actually notice that, because ours are packaged differently. But there you have it.
The evidence of cleanup inside the garage. So, it was, we assumed that possibly one of these trash bags may have been used, and if found, maybe they could match it back to that box.
What day did you collect this evidence?
This was collected on May 25th, 2019.
Thank you. Anything else in the kitchen that you seized or swabbed that day?
We found another blood-like stain up on the edge of the countertop.
States 15. What does that depict, sir?
Again, that's the this blood-like stain here. That's discoloration.
And what did you do, if anything?
We field tested it for blood using that KM test.
So I'm going to tell you guys something that's going to sound pretty disturbing, and it was pretty disturbing when it happened. About 6 years ago, I was at I wouldn't call it a bachelor party, but it was sort of a bachelor's event. A friend of mine was getting married, and they invited me onto this boat. We were all a bunch of guys fishing. I'm not really the world's best fisherman, as you're about to find out. But I remember on this boat thinking about true crime and thinking about blood, and I just said to myself, I'm going to try and not get any blood on myself. But how can I put it? We were catching a lot of fish, and you would imagine you wouldn't get blood on yourself anyway. But what I was basically undertaking was, I'm going to try and make sure that anywhere where there's blood, I'm going to take precautions that almost like I'm a criminal in a crime scene. I'm going to try and make sure I don't get any blood on me, right? And within a very, very short time, a little bit of blood was on my shoe, right? And, you know, it is quite, how can I put it? It's a very fluid scene when you're on a fishing boat and there are 6 or 8 guys fishing, and they're big fish, you know, as long as my arm, that are being pulled aboard, and certain people are cleaning them or whatever, and the fish flap like this, and blood is going all over the place, right? And so I'm just trying to say, it doesn't matter how careful you are in a scene, like in a situation like that, it's extremely difficult to control and to keep yourself completely clean, as you can see here. He probably thought, you know, I'll just clean everything up, and he did a really bad job because there's still blood after cleaning up all over the place.
It was positive, and then we collected it using that.
Especially in
same swab.
a knife-related
Swabs as well?
murder.
I'm going to show you what's marked as states 16. I'm sorry, it's actually states 9, file 3, states picture 16. What is that?
This is a toothbrush that I found in the master bathroom upstairs on the second floor.
That's what Stephanie was referring
There is
to,
a
the
yellow
master
placard
bathroom.
31. What does that mean?
We seized that as State Police Exhibit 31.
Why did you seize the toothbrush?
In missing persons investigation, we attempt to collect a pseudonym or something that a pseudonym DNA profile can be developed from. We do this by either collecting the missing person's toothbrush or razor.
So it seems the typical item seized in a missing person case is a toothbrush. That's what he's saying. I know about hairbrushes. I know hairbrushes are very often seized. I know they were used in the Madeleine McCann case. And I don't know if you guys know, in the Madeleine McCann case, none of her DNA was ever found in Portugal. So I don't know if Madeleine had a hairbrush in Portugal, but whatever the answer is to that, they weren't able to find any of Madeleine's DNA in Portugal. And as a result, they had to go to England to get a hairbrush, or to get, not sure if it was a hairbrush or a pillow. And so they apparently got Madeleine's DNA in England, not in Portugal, which is also quite fascinating, that her DNA had actually been completely lost in the entire country.
Something of that nature.
By missing person, do you mean Jennifer Farber DULOS?
Yes, it is. It is.
On May 25th, 2019, did you collect anything else from the house?
Yes, several other items.
You can have a seat, sir. Actually, sorry. I'm going to show you what's been marked as 17. Actually, it's 9, file 3, picture 17. What is that?
That is a hair that we found on the garage floor.
Now, you indicated you did not process the garage on 525. Did you take this out of the garage on 525?
Yes, I did.
Okay, why this item?
Because the hair was loose and it could have easily blown away.
If I can, I'm just gonna scroll up. Is the hair depicted in that photograph?
Yes.
Now, with respect to, actually, I apologize, strike that. And
Let's just pause over there. So what I find incredible in the Rex Heuermann case is that that case seems to be make or break on the basis of a couple of hairs. So whoever committed that crime cleaned up pretty well after himself. Would you agree? And the only thing that they could find were a couple of hairs on the victims and not the hairs of the actual perpetrator. And again, that just shows you how sophisticated law enforcement is today, that they can look into even cases that are decades old, even a case from 2007 that's, when the first crime occurred, 17 years old. They can see back in time microscopically, and they're able to catch the perpetrator. It's really incredible. They're able to make certain links and inferences to the potential perpetrator.
I'm going to show you what's marked as picture 18. What is that photograph?
That is one of the seals that we use to seal up the house at the conclusion of processing on the 25th. That is on appears to be the central garage bay.
That red tape that's depicted in the center part of the photograph, did you put that anywhere else in the house?
Yes, on the garage bay doors and the front door. And
okay, while he's thinking, let me ask you a question. You are confronted with, let's say, this particular crime scene, and you haven't gone in yet. You're just told that there's a woman that's disappeared. There seems to be a little bit of blood on the grill of the vehicle. That's all that they know of at that point, right? And you're now going to enter the house, and it is a murder, but you don't know that yet. But let's say you are a homicide investigator, and what are all the tools you can use? I'm talking about in terms of evidence, visual evidence that you can use to search for evidence of the victim, right? And see if you can give me around about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 examples of kind of microscopic evidence that you can use to see what happened in this crime scene. Any ideas? See what some of you say. Now, we're dealing with what you can see and what is ultimately recoverable. So just trying to see what you guys are saying. Any ideas? Well, what have we already seen in this case? In terms of this particular episode? Still not seeing any answers. Stephanie says, this look of Jennifer's reminds me of one I've seen of Shanann. So the question is, you're an investigator, and what are the various items of evidence that you can look for that are kind of microscopic, that can help you see what happened? And it's visually present, but it's quite small? What are the kind of things you can look at? Charles says, I have no idea. Okay. I'm still trying to see just a simple answer. Sheila's on the right track. Was it Sheila? Sheila's on the right track. Okay. I was hoping I was going to get a couple of answers. I'm going to give you 6 examples. So one of the things you're going to look for is hair, right? Another one is fibers, right? For example, what was she wearing? Are there clothing fibers in the vehicle? Another one is dilute blood traces. In other words, very small, in other words, blood that's been reduced in some way to very small spots or wiped away, right? Well, there's a good answer. Touch DNA or just DNA. DNA as well. DNA, you would either be getting through the blood, through the hair, or also in the form of touch DNA. So you might want to look in the, unfortunately, they should have looked in the Toyota Tacoma for touch DNA, for example. What is her DNA doing in that vehicle? And there's another good example, fingerprints, right? So number 5, fingerprints. I wouldn't really say blood spatter because blood spatter is quite obvious. So I'm talking about almost at a microscopic level. I'm not saying blood spatter is irrelevant, but I'm talking about at an almost invisible level. So I'm saying that it is visible. It's just almost not visible. So you can see a hair, but it's not very easy to see a hair. You can see a fiber with the naked eye. It's not very easy to see it. And there are certain things that I guess you can't see, like DNA, although you might see a flake of skin or a hair that's got DNA on it, right? So have I mentioned fingerprints? Fingerprints would be another one. And so through all of these different things, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take you into looking at a crime scene microscopically. And in other words, not what you see at face value, what is one visual layer below that. And that is very small objects that are nevertheless of evidentiary value, such as hairs, such as fibers, such as dilute blood. In other words, blood that's not so easy to see. It's there, but you can't really see it. DNA, now it's going almost below the visual level. Fingerprints, that's also kind of not necessarily below the visual level, but is sometimes. What else is there? And then there are things like cadaver odor and scent traces. That's certainly absent of the visual level. That's a totally different dimension. That's the scent dimension. Then there's another dimension, which is the what's it? It's not olfactory, auditory dimension, which is what was heard, right? And that's apparently not relevant in this case, but who knows, it might be down the line. What's also interesting is once you come to the end of the road of, let's call it the visual, the micro-visual field, you actually have the other side of that coin, which is, okay, so let's say you don't find any evidence, you don't find any DNA, any fibers, you don't find any hairs, right? Then what should you look for in that case? Let's see how smart you guys are. Let's say the officers came to this crime scene and they didn't find anything, not a single trace of blood. What would they do then? That's also a good point. That's also a good point. Well, if you had the victims, if you had the victim, that might be helpful. Security cameras, yeah. Okay, but so if you have zero evidence, you've got a crime scene and there's zero in front of you, what would you look for then? Well, you would look for signs of cleaning products used. So in other words, in the absence of all of that evidence, you would just say, why is there no evidence here? And then what could explain it? Well, if there are elevated levels of bleach, in other words, you can smell the bleach, the bottles of empty bleach lying around, there are mops filled with bleach, and you could test those. What is in these mops? Are there any traces of anything in the mops, the mop fabric? And in other words, if there's no evidence, then you want to look at a reason for that. Was there a big cleanup operation that was undertaken? And then that is evidence of a sort as well. Why is all of this bleach being used on the floor or on the counter or in the basin, right? And then, yeah, that's a very good example as well. You can use luminol to see into a scene. That is also sometimes done. But there are times where the luminol is not going to show you anything because everything's been destroyed, such as in the Patrick Frazee case. In the Patrick Frazee case, you had a bloodbath, but all the evidence was scrubbed and washed away. It is possible for that to happen. Even the cadaver dogs couldn't find anything because the bleach had destroyed even the odors, right? Missing paper towels, right? And often if you go into a crime scene and the first thing you smell is bleach, that is an indicator as well. And that's something that I think crime labs need to catch up with, is being able to record smell rates and smell levels, whether it's the smell of a dead body or it's the smell of cleaning products. Because how do you actually say, well, there's a strong smell? Someone else says, I didn't smell anything. How can you actually measure that? So what I'm trying to say is, if you find all sorts of evidence, score well done. If you don't find anything, that's not the end of it. You then look for evidence of cleaning. And if you find evidence of cleaning in the middle of a crime scene, that's also a score. Why is there cleaning going on when there shouldn't have been? Why is this towel still wet? Right? Remember in the Barry Morphy case, there were towels in his hotel room. Why is there items in the washing machine that is still wet? That something has just been washed, etc., etc.
Do you recall any other ones?
Not off the top of my head, ma'am.
Okay. With respect to,
Yeah.
oh, yes, actually.
Right.
Right above the red tape, right, that the gray marking, what is that?
That's a garage door remote.
Okay. And did you take any action with respect to that?
Yes, on the 25th, I swabbed that in an attempt to collect.
So one of the questions we're still asking in terms of this case is, how did Fotis get into the garage? Oh, sorry, how did he get into the house? And I'm assuming that he got in by following Jennifer in. So when the vehicle pulled in, he snuck in under the garage. But is that how he got in? Do you think that's how he got in?
Like any latent DNA material that may have been on it.
Okay. Did you use that same two-swab process?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, on the 25th, did you, again, why didn't you process the garage on the 25th?
Our plan was to call in a bloodstain expert to come in to process the garage with us.
And who did you call?
It was then Lieutenant Mark Davison.
And what day was he scheduled to process the scene with you?
Objection irrelevant with this witness.
Well,
And
the
here's-
question is, on what day was he scheduled to process the scene? And the objection is relevant, overruled.
He was scheduled to come on the 27th, which was Monday.
Now, did you go anywhere else on May 25th?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go?
In the morning, I went to Lapham Road in New Canaan.
So now we're going to look at the Chevy Suburban, and it's, you know, if it's crazy how much evidence was left in this house, it's also crazy, having been clean for 2 hours, it's crazy that there was evidence in the vehicle as well. We're going to look at that now.
Okay, sir, I'm going to have you take a look behind you. This would be States 9, File 5, Photograph 1. Do you recognize what's depicted on that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
That's an overhead view of the area of Lapham Road that I visited on the morning of the 25th.
If you could, would you mind standing up and just pointing to the area that you visited that morning?
So it's somewhere over here.
Generally in this area here.
Why did you go there? You can have a seat, sir.
Well, before you proceed, counsel, would you just indicate for the record what quadrant of the photograph
Oh,
the witness pointed to?
I apologize, Your Honor. For the record, that would be the middle to lower center right area. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, why did you respond there?
We learned that the New Canaan Police Department had located Jennifer DULOS's Chevy Suburban on that road, and that they were going to be in the process of towing it back to their police department. We wanted to go there first to take a look at the outside of it, photograph it before it was loaded onto the tow truck.
What time did you go to Lapham Road that day?
It was in the morning, approximately 7 o'clock.
What did you do when you arrived on scene?
I looked at the outside of the vehicle, and then photographed 4 sides of it.
Did you walk around the entire vehicle?
I believe so, yes.
And with respect to, well, if I can, I'm going to show you, you take a look behind you. This is again file 5, States 9. Picture 2, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
That's the photograph of the Chevy Suburban I was speaking about.
Did you take that photograph?
Yes.
Now, with respect to walking around the vehicle, how close was it to the, I guess, foliage and trees next to it?
I believe the right-hand side of the vehicle was right up against the bushes.
And the right-hand side, would that be the driver's or the passenger side?
I'm sorry, the passenger side.
Thank you. And the direction of the vehicle parked, I guess, is that, actually, if I can just go back briefly to picture 1. Sir, do you know what road is on the bottom here going from left to right?
So let's just look at this question. How do they plan to tie Michelle into this? No, they don't have a DNA. They don't have a DNA in the house. They don't have a DNA in this vehicle, the Chevy Suburban. They actually know that she was in the, so on the night of the murder, so the murder happened, is it the 24th of May in the morning? So the murder happened from about 8:05, 8:05 till about 10:20. So for about those 2 hours, 20 minutes, Fotis committed the murder and covered it up. and Michelle was more than likely not present, and she was, I think, later at the office for construction company. And as far as I understand, excuse me, that night, Fotis drove in a red Toyota Tacoma, and he made 30 disposals in 30 different bins, and Michelle was with him. So, and we know that because there's footage of her while he's throwing something in a bin, she seems to stretch out her arm and seems to either pick something up off the sidewalk right next to the vehicle, or I think her explanation was she had gum on her fingers and she's trying to scrape that off onto the road. And so there's no doubt that she was part of that. She admits it herself. She was part of that part of everything. And then I guess the question is it reasonable to assume that she wouldn't have known what is going on? If he told her, I've just got a lot, I was painting my garage or whatever, and I've just got a lot of trash that I want to get rid of, is it reasonable that she would have gone along and not asked about it? And then also later on, she was part of having that particular vehicle cleaned. Was she part of that as well? I'm just trying to think. I don't think they did the disposal in the Toyota Tacoma, because the CCTV I saw was a black vehicle. So I'm not quite sure where that fits into it. But does that answer your question? Yeah, there is footage. Yeah. So that's not the issue so much. The issue is, can they prove a connection beyond reasonable doubt to Michelle? And that's kind of why I've come up with this, because I think a stronger case that they can put together, and I'll probably get to this, but is to do with motive. If she did know, and if she did go along with what she knew, why? What is her motive for doing that? And although you can speculate that she didn't have a motive, I think at the same time you can speculate that she may have. And that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be looking at a potential motive. Did you know that Michelle Troconis had a degree in psychology? Did you know that? So we'll be dealing with the potential motive maybe tomorrow. I'm just trying to look for the right time to do it.
That's the Merritt Parkway, Route 15.
And with respect to the vehicle, how it was parked, do you know which direction it was facing? Was it towards or away from the Merritt Parkway?
It was facing the Merritt.
Now I'll show you picture 3. What does that depict?
That's the left or driver's side of the vehicle.
And
It's not as simple as that. Because 30 garbage was placed into 30 bins, and I can understand if someone stops once or twice, but more than 10 times, I think you're going to be, the average person, I think, would say, what the hell is going on? Because that is very unreasonable behavior. In the history of your life, have you ever, in one day, put garbage into more than 5 receptacles? Ever in your entire life? Do you know anyone in your entire life that's done that? Put garbage in more than 10 receptacles? I don't. So it's very unusual behavior, and most people confronted with very unusual behavior, would ask, "What are you doing?" Charles says, that. Okay, let's continue.
Picture 4.
That's the rear of the vehicle.
Now, were you able to walk around the vehicle over here on the right side? You can see my cursor.
Not completely. I really just kind of had to look from, where I could access.
And did you find anything on that vehicle that you took note of?
I found some blood-like stains on the outside of the vehicle.
Where?
On the outside of the vehicle.
Okay, and where on the outside of the vehicle?
I believe it was on the rear bumper.
Did you photograph them?
Yes, I did.
Or I should say, I'm sorry. 5, 6, 5.
Did you catch that he found stains exactly where you'd expect to find them on the rear bumper? It's also where they found stains in the garage of Letitia Stork's home on the rear bumper of her vehicle.
What is that?
That's one of the blood-like stains I found on the vehicle.
Now, if I scroll in, it does not have, this photograph doesn't have a writing here. Did you put that white, I guess, measurement marker that we've seen?
Yes, I did.
Does that look like blood to you? Like if you were just looking at that with a naked eye, does that look like blood to you? First question. Second question, does that look like blood that's been smeared, that's been cleaned? Does that look like a drop of blood that just landed there and then that was it? Or does it look like someone tried to wipe that drop of blood as well?
I did.
Okay. There's nothing written on it. Is there a reason why?
I just included in the photograph for scale.
Did you process or take any action with the vehicle as it remained on scene?
No.
And what does 6 depict, please?
Again, that's another view of that same stain.
So that's another view of the same stain, and there you can clearly see that it has been wiped away. And that's what's quite incredible with blood, is that you can wipe it away and it's still there. Either a discoloration remains behind or a kind of silhouette of it remains behind, or both.
Now, sir, I'm going to draw your attention back to May 27th. Well, actually, before I go there, I'm sorry, strike that. The evidence that you collected on May 25th, I think we went through some of them.
Lynn Lippy says, I don't think that is wiped. No, you don't think it's wiped?
Now, what happened to the evidence after you packaged it and gave it a evidence number?
The evidence was sealed, and I labeled them appropriately per our protocol. Some of the electronic evidence was turned over to the New Canaan Police Department so they could pursue those items, examine those.
With respect to the items.
So I just want to ask Susan a question. Susan, do you think Michelle's innocent? Because you're saying it's completely normal to go in a vehicle and do whatever. So do you think first of all, do you think she's innocent? And second of all, based on your experience, do you think she should be found not guilty? In other words, that's not enough to prove anything beyond everything else that they're going to be talking about. We've just been spending the past 3 days looking at all the blood that's been accumulated and wiped up, and we know that must have been thrown away. In other words, what was in those 30 garbage bags, right? And are you saying we shouldn't really pay attention to that? Do you think that that's irrelevant?
That you were shown photographs of? What
Yes.
happened to those?
I I secured those in the major crime van.
So Susan says, I think she could have been oblivious. Okay. So not just she was oblivious when that happened, was she also oblivious when she went to clean somebody else's truck? Have you ever done that? Have you ever in your life taken someone else's vehicle to have it cleaned?
And at the conclusion of processing, I drove those up to our headquarters in Litchfield, secured them in the evidence room. And then on the 27th in the morning, I returned to Litchfield, took them out of the evidence room, put them on the major crime van, and drove them back down to New Canaan.
Why did you do that?
Because they were still in our custody.
Okay. And was it a state police case at this point?
I'm not sure when that changed, ma'am. We wanted to keep the evidence.
I do think it's interesting. Someone made this point earlier. Good to see you here, Yvonne. I do think it's interesting that if you say she's got a degree in psychology, what is psychology all about? Well, it's about what someone else is thinking. And so if you've got a degree in what someone else is thinking, and here's someone doing something strange, do you not fall back on your training that, first of all, this is strange behavior? Secondly, yeah, so that's definitely quite interesting if you would say that that's not relevant. But the question here is, have you ever taken someone's vehicle that's not yours, not your husband's, someone that's a third party, and you've personally gone and cleaned it? Have you ever done that in your life? I've done that, I think, twice, but it was a vehicle I was using that was given to me when I was doing photojournalism. So it's totally different. It's a vehicle that I had custody over. So I think if you're gonna make the defense case, then I think you've got to, within your own experience, I think you've got to be very explicit about it. And there are definitely some things that are very strange.
Together. And normally, we turn over evidence to the local police departments when we do an assist all at once.
Someone says it's a very circumstantial case. Aloha, Iceland, good to see you. Yeah, but you can win a case with circumstantial evidence. You don't need absolute direct evidence. You're not going to get evidence connecting her to the scene because there is not evidence connecting her to the scene. They're not trying to accuse her of murder. They're trying to accuse her of being, I guess, an accessory after the fact. Someone who's participated in, I don't think they use those words. I think they say that she's accused of tampering with evidence. So that's really the issue.
Okay. And on the 27th, did you drive the van to 69 Wells that day?
Yes.
And in the van, is there a place to store the evidence?
We usually keep it in a banker's box on the floor.
And when you arrived at 69 Wells Lane on May 27th, who was there?
Gosh.
We're going to jump a little ahead.
The yellow arrow again?
Again, denotes north.
Picture 3? What does that depict, sir?
That is area C with some of the stains and exhibits marked up.
We have the 68 placard right here. What is
So
that
what I want to
supposed
show you
designate?
guys is there's
That designates another.
just pause it. What I want to show you guys is there's actually a second fragment of tissue left behind at the crime scene. Any idea where that was left behind? So we know that one fragment of tissue paper was left behind under the wheel on the left side of the front wheel, if you looking from the back, some tissue paper, like a triangular fragment, was left behind the wheel. There even seems to be a little bit of staining on the one side of it. Any idea where the other fragment was found?
Fragment of paper towel.
I can just.
That's a good question. I've also only seen a few clips.
Yes.
I think one's got to do an
What
open
did you do,
records
if
request
anything,
for that.
with, 60
But we'll probably see it during
I
this
collected
trial.
it in the same manner as the other fragments of paper towel. It was packaged in paper.
Did you take any swabbings?
I did not.
And if you can, sir, picture 4, and if you wouldn't mind, the same thing, just if it is reflected on the map on the left side, if you
Hold on,
could.
stop, please.
Oh,
What has just happened, ladies and gentlemen, is that, of course, the entire proceeding is recorded.
how did you place that 70?
Can you see
number?
that is the shoe
I
print
did, yes.
over there?
How do you document this or seize this as an exhibit?
Well, the hard way would be to jackhammer up the floor and send that to the lab, but that's not impractical. So what we decided to do is photograph them properly, 90 degrees with scale, and send the photographs to the lab as Exhibit 70 for identification and possible comparison.
Thank you. And 71, is that depicted on Zone D map as well?
Yes, it is Exhibit 71 here.
And why did you seize that item, sir?
Again, this is another blood-like stain on the garage floor. You can see, that a similar pattern in it, but you can also see the swipe marks through it.
Picture 8, what does this show, sir?
Picture 8 is it's another area of blood-like staining that appear to be wipe marks.
And was this all contained in Area D?
Yes.
And picture 9?
Can you see that wipe mark over there?
Yeah, it's a additional stain pattern found in Area E.
I can't, I'm gonna scroll. Oops. Up here, this marker, I guess L-shaped marker again. What is that?
Again, it's another blood-like stain on the floor with a similar pattern, but a lot less detail to it.
And with respect to these items just around, and if you could follow my cursor, sir, they're little dots or things. What are they?
It's pretty,
Okay, so just to be clear, I must say I'm a little bit surprised at this. I actually thought she'd been accused of being an accessory. She's actually accused of, as someone rightly said, conspiracy to commit murder, which suggests that she's part of the original plan to commit murder. And if you think about Laurie Vallow, you kind of have the same thing, that she's not just an accessory, she's part of the conspiracy to commit murder. And that's why I think looking at her motive is so important. I was surprised when I put the motive together, the elements of it, of the potential motive. I was quite surprised how much I could come up with. But there it is. She's been charged with conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with physical evidence. Now, bear in mind, if you say, I can't believe that, she actually provided the law enforcement with a alibi, provided him with an alibi to begin with. She said they were showering together and I guess that they had sex. And she said that in the beginning, and then after that repeated that, and then only on the third occasion, I guess, when he was no longer alive, then said, oh no, that wasn't true. So it's conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with physical evidence, hindering the prosecution, and additional charges. So it's quite serious.
Vegetative matter, plants.
And
So you can almost see in that picture that there's a second piece of towel in that particular picture. Any idea where it is? You can't see it from looking at that picture, but is there anyone here that knows actually where that evidence towel is, that fragment? You're not going to believe it when you do see it. I mean, it's very hard to believe that there's another evidence towel where it eventually is found.
anything, actually, picture 10, was this contained in Area D?
Yes. Right here at the, almost at the border of Area D.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And is this the same item that you seized on 525?
This is correct. This is the hair.
Okay, so there's someone here saying, I'm new to this case, I'll have to do some catching up. How many of you would like me to go through just a generic overview of what happened in this case? Just a generic, this is what happened. Just let me know. Do you want me to continue with this, going through some of the crime scene photos, which we're going to do for another about 20 minutes, or do you want to deal with the generic narrative? If we just quickly look at the headline for today, key moments so far. I don't know if you know, so there she is. That is Michelle Troconis. And that's the victim, Jennifer DULOS. Also, her maiden name is Jennifer Faber. So the key moments, I'm not going to go in detail. Body cam reveals blood spatter found in the house. The defense blasts the junk science in the case, where they're saying the blood evidence there's no probative value to it. The legal team are saying that the substance used to illuminate blood is junk science. And there's some truth to that, because some of the things that luminol shows can be fruit juice, for example. So it's not to say, and bleach will also show up in the same way that blood does. I remember the same argument being used in the Caitlin Armstrong case, that ballistics evidence is pseudoscience, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. A floor mat was missing from the trunk of Jennifer's SUV, right? And we've seen that, the footage of her home. It actually wasn't really her home, it was a rented home. And the Troconis family are still supporting Michelle. So that's where we are. 3 takeaways from today. I don't think I'm able to log into that, but let's have a look at what you guys have said. Who wants me to do an overview? Someone says the mistress is unattractive. Well, I think she's trying to make herself look unattractive in court. She's an ex-ESPN presenter. So I think she's trying to look very understated, a bit like Jodi Arias. The vehicle in the garage, there was also there's another vehicle as well. What are you guys saying? You guys want me to do an overview? Okay, so I see a couple of yes, pleases. Okay. So all of this happened on May the 24th, 2019. And I think you can see now why authorities suspect that she was killed in a violent attack. It wasn't just how can I put it? It wasn't a gunshot. It was something that involved some kind of struggle. And not only that, I think they found wire ties, plastic ties. So it indicates whatever happened to Jennifer was pretty horrible. It was not just a struggle, it was a pretty horrible thing that she went through before she died. It's possible that a killer wanted passwords and so on, wanted information. So I'm gonna just take you guys through the Wikipedia, and we'll just go through it. It's not a very long Wikipedia. At the time, the context was that she was going through a very contentious divorce that was lasting 2 years, very expensive, over 300 motions, and they have 5 children, and so this was part of what the divorce is all about, custody. Jennifer and Fotis were in the midst of a contentious divorce and child custody proceedings. Police suspect that Fotis had been lying in wait for Jennifer and attacked her when she arrived at home. How did he get there? Well, we already know that he went there allegedly by bicycle. And his bicycle that had been with him from childhood, since childhood, was found, or parts of it were found disposed of. The bicycle that had always been hanging on a hook in the garage had disappeared. Police allege that he and Troconis drove to Hartford, right, to dispose of garbage bags containing items with Jennifer's blood on them on the night that Jennifer disappeared. Police further allege that a lawyer conspired with Fotis and Troconis. So it's quite a serious case, this. If she's convicted, she could get life behind bars. I'm not going to go through the background. DULOS started emailing Faber, who he'd also met at Brown, while still with his first wife. They married in Manhattan just over a month after DULOS's divorce. In her divorce documents, Jennifer wrote, "I know that filing for divorce will enrage him. I know he will retaliate by trying to harm me in some way." She also stated she believed he was having an affair with his colleague, Michelle Troconis. Jennifer also alleged that Fotis had threatened to kidnap their children if she did not agree to his terms. Also, he bought a gun that year. Fotis denied making threats, and he claimed he bought the gun legally for home security. Despite Jennifer's requesting an emergency order of custody, the couple were given joint custody of their children until the end of the divorce proceedings. When Jennifer again requested an emergency order of custody in early 2018, the judge found that Fotis had broken numerous court orders. And the issue was that he was seeing his kids with the mistress present, and that was a condition the judge had set, that wasn't to take place. And so you can imagine a year after she was granted sole physical custody, he wasn't very happy about that. He's someone who doesn't like losing. In February 2018, Gloria Farber, Jennifer's mother, sued Fotis for unpaid loans. She claimed he owed them 1.7 million loaned to him by his father-in-law, Hilliard Farber. Now the disappearance. Jennifer was last seen at about 8 a.m. on May 24th, after she dropped her children off at New Canaan Country School. Now, what's the significance of that time? Well, you would imagine the father would know exactly when his kids went to school and would know when his wife would get back from that. He would know that to the exact minute. The same day, almost like Shanann Watts, Jennifer missed 2 doctor's appointments that had her scheduled for 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. in New York City. Of course, the crime was completed by about 10:20 a.m. So one wonders whether he knew about this appointment. Later that evening, at around 7 p.m., so it is relatively late, 2 of her friends reported her missing after they failed to get in contact with her. So the crime scene was about 9 hours old when someone called 911. Family and friends of Jennifer stated it would be out of character for her to leave home on her own without telling anyone. One of the claims, and Fotis made many claims, and one of the claims Fotis DULOS made was that Jennifer was writing a book and she was doing the whole Gone Girl thing in order to implicate him. That was one of many imaginative scenarios he pinned on Jennifer. Almeida, who had arrived at the house at 11:30 a.m. that day, told detectives she was surprised to see Jennifer's Range Rover in the garage because she had planned to take it to her doctor's appointments instead of the Chevrolet Suburban, which was missing. When detectives searched the house, they found blood splatter on the floor, door, and a wall in the garage, as well as on the exterior of the Range Rover. Blood was also found in the kitchen. DNA tests revealed most of the blood to be Jennifer's, apart from the blood on the kitchen faucet, a mixture belonging to both her and Fotis. So what that tells you is that in this life and death struggle, it's possible that Jennifer, good for her, injured Fotis, maybe scratched him, caused him to bleed, and the blood that he washed off there was a mixture of her DNA and his DNA. Police also found other evidence of Jennifer being the victim of a serious assault. Jennifer's Chevrolet Suburban had been captured on the neighbor's security camera leaving her home at around 10:25 that morning. Fotis was believed to be the one driving the victim's vehicle, carrying the body of Jennifer and other items associated with the probable cleanup. That same evening at around 7:30 p.m., Fotis and Troconis were captured on video dumping garbage bags in 30 bins in Hartford. Now, I must say, the fact that it's that same evening, it's a Friday evening, I think must give you, it's not as though this happened 2 weeks later or a month later. The fact that it happened that same evening and Troconis is with him, I find quite interesting. The trash bags were found to contain various pieces of bloodied clothing, as well as blood-stained cleaning items. The blood was determined to be that of Jennifer. Fotis's DNA was found on the inside of a glove in one of the trash bags and on one of the and on one of the trash bags. At the time Jennifer went missing, she and her husband were estranged and still engaged in a tumultuous divorce. They were also involved in the ongoing contentious child custody proceedings. Police searched numerous properties in and around Farmington and near Fotis's home without success. Investigators believe he arrived by bike to Jennifer's home due to time marks. Now, what's quite interesting in the Barry Morphew case is, bear in mind, the Barry Morphew case happened a year, almost not to the day, but from May 2019 to May 2020, about a year later. And Barry wanted Morgan Gentile to be at the hotel that he was staying in. And you've got to wonder, did Barry look at this case and take any notes? Because there's some similarities between that case and this case. On January 19, that's my birthday, by the way, 2021, the Connecticut State Police visited property on Mountain Spring Road in Farmington, which was once owned by Fotis Real Estate Company, to follow up old leads. Several authorities could be seen behind the property digging up the yard. Isn't that also similar to what we saw in the Morphew case, where people went to properties that he was associated with? Police brought in Bob Perry, a nationally renowned expert at finding unmarked grave sites. He would not say what, if anything, had been discovered. The next day, police returned there with an excavator and a septic tank. Police briefly spoke with the media, but said they did not have any updates. On June 1st, it's interesting that they were arrested at the same time. It's not as though Troconis was arrested later. So within a week, Fotis and Troconis were arrested in the disappearance and murder of Jennifer DULOS. At that time, it was the disappearance of Jennifer DULOS. Fotis hired that attorney to represent him. In late October, it was reported Troconis had moved out of Fotis's $5 million home in Farmington. That's also important. Why did she move out of the home? Did he ask her to move out? Did she realize that he's guilty? If she was an accessory, wouldn't she stick by him all that time? So the crime happens at the end of May, and by late October, Troconis moves out. So let's have a look at that. June, July, August, September, October. Takes about 5 months before she moves out. On January 7, if you think about that, 5 months is also kind of a long time. So then a couple of more months go by, about 3 months go by, and in January, Fotis is arrested at his home by the Connecticut State Police and charged with capital murder. Troconis was also arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Meanwhile, their lawyer, or a lawyer, became estranged from his wife. And then Fotis DULOS dies at the end of that month. By January 28, he had died. Also, ironically, in a garage. in his note, he wrote, "I refuse to spend even an hour more in jail for something I had nothing to do with." By then, he already had a new girlfriend, Anna Curry. She was at his home that morning. So even though he had a girlfriend that apparently, or that is being accused of conspiring, 5 months later, he had another girlfriend. And that's it. And that's where we are now. So is it clear now what we're dealing with? It does seem like the authorities have felt that Michelle Troconis had conspired with him all along. It's not like they only thought about it in the last couple of weeks. The fact that she was on the day that Jennifer Farber was murdered, on that same day, later that same day, she was with DULOS in the vehicle, making these 30 stops or putting garbage into the bins, and also later on participating in the cleanup of another vehicle. And there's probably a lot of cell phone evidence that we've got to go through as well. What were they saying to one another over text? Another problem for Michelle is that she's made a lot of inconsistent statements. That's a problem.
Now, with respect to States 9, File 10,
That's right.
are you familiar with Detective Pearson's map for Area E?
Yes.
Sir, photograph 1 out of that file, what does that depict?
It's an overall view of, again, that right side garage bay. Area E is depicted here right in the center.
Photograph 2, what is that, sir?
This is a blood-like stain pattern that we located in Area E. It's located here, kind of top center of the area. And I took a swabbing of this area to sample the blood-like stain. It was on the garage floor.
Was that designated as?
Thanks a lot, Terry. Anyone, there's a One True Crime Rocket Science membership up for grabs. Anyone interested in that? What I do in the members section is I show you some behind the scenes stuff, especially when I travel to America. I take you guys along with for the ride. What did I want to, in terms of these biggish areas that are discolored, that's definitely indicating significant blood loss. So if you only saw a few drops of blood here and there, that could be someone cutting their finger with a knife. That could be someone stubbing their toe. But when you have biggish areas of the floor that are discolored like that, that is showing quite a significant loss of blood, and there are quite a few of them, and they quite large.
A exhibit?
Yes, Exhibit 51.
There is a pink arrow on the right side. Do you see where the pink arrow is?
Yes.
What exactly is that?
That, in this large stain pattern, the arrow depicts exactly where I took the sample from.
And same,
So someone says he was most likely a womanizer, but I kind of get the feeling that given how quickly he moved on to the next relationship, that not to say that that's not true, the womanizing thing, but I kind of get the feeling that he was definitely using Michelle Troconis. And isn't that what he also did with his first wife? He used her. She was a means to an end. Michelle was a means to an end. Do you agree with that?
process, 2 swaps?
Two swabs, yes.
Did you test it
I did.
and the results?
Again, every now and then, just make the same objection regarding any quote results.
Thank you, overruled.
The test result was positive.
Thank you. Sir, picture
Okay, so just a quick point on what McRamble says. There is one man that can clean that well, and that's Chris Watts. He cleaned his whole life. He was used to doing the laundry. He left behind a very clean crime scene.
3.
There's a similar stain pattern. Another blood-like stain that appeared to be a white. It's located here at the left-hand side of area E. And again, I sampled this using that same swabbing technique, same testing technique. And I took the sample from this area here.
and the test results?
Test results were positive.
Picture 4.
Picture 4 is another blood-like stain we found in area E. And the stain pattern itself appeared to us to be a textured glove. If you can imagine 3 fingers here.
That's
What
interesting.
exhibit was
3
this
fingers.
marked at?
I marked it as State Police Exhibit 55.
And states 5. What does that show?
That's an overall view of area E taken from kind of with your back to the mudroom door. So you can see exhibit 55 here, that swipe mark.
And picture 6.
It's a off-kilter view of area E and the right-hand side of the garage.
Thank you. I'm going to draw your attention now to states 9, file 11. Are you familiar with Detective Pearson's map concerning zone F?
Yes, I am.
Picture 1 off of states 9, file 11. Sir, what does that depict?
It's an overall view of the right-hand side of the garage. You see area F is down here. This is the.
I see the trash cans over here.
overhead door. And area F is up in this area. Makes up center all the way down to the bottom of the photograph.
Thank you. Picture 2.
It's another blood-like stain pattern we found on the garage floor. Again, this is the threshold of the overhead door.
I'm going to scroll in a little bit. So that yellow arrow again, what does that depict?
That denotes north.
Picture 3.
That is, again, another blood-like stain pattern we found on the floor.
That is, must say, quite a clear shoe impression, shoe print. You can see the front of it. That's the kind of impression you see in the Amanda Knox case as well. It's almost invisible, but it's there.
Again, there's more detail inside this pattern. So we designated it as State Police Exhibit 54, photographed it in a similar manner as the others.
And is that depicted on the map?
Yes, it's located.
So just to come back to the Amanda Knox case, there's also a footprint impression left in blood. And obviously, you can't have a shoe print or a footprint left in blood without the crime first having committed, right? Being committed. And what's very interesting with that footprint is its size. Does it match the large foot of Rudy Gaudet, or does it match somebody else?
On the left-hand side of area
Picture 4.
Picture 4 is another blood-like stain.
That's quite a clear shoe impression. You can clearly see the shape of it and the beginnings of the grid of the sole inside.
Pattern found on the floor.
And picture 5.
That is
Do you think that is a blood stain?
blood-like stain that I tested and sampled as Exhibit 52.
And with respect to the swabbing process, same swabbing process?
Correct, same testing and swabbing process.
And the test results of this one?
I referred my report.
You can't
Would
remember.
it refresh your recollection to take a look at your exhibit report?
Yes.
As far as I can remember, that's not a blood stain. It tested negative for blood. Does it make you wonder what was that?
I can, Your Honor, just to put the clerk on smart ID. 11 for ID, please. Sir, would it refresh your recollection to take a look at your exhibit report?
Yes, it would.
I'm going to hand you and draw your attention, please, to page 3. Please take a moment, do not read that out loud, and look up to me when you're done. Did that sufficiently refresh your recollection, sir, as to the results of the test?
Yes, it did.
And what were the results of the test?
That KM test was negative.
Thank you.
Did you catch that? That was a negative result.
And is that depicted on the map as well?
Yes. Exhibit 52 is there.
Thank you.
It almost looks like the rust
Page 6.
impression left by perhaps a coin that was lying there.
Yeah, that's another overall view of area F.
Are you familiar with area G, sir?
Yes.
And now states 9, file 12. Are you familiar with Detective Pearson's map?
Yes, I am.
Photograph 1, sir, what does that depict?
That is a photograph of the center garage bay, 69 wells.
That's where he shows
Yeah,
the
with respect to
fragment
that.
of the tissue.
After it was photographed, I just collected it now.
Picture 8
Is a photo of what like
would be for the records photo. Sorry. 8, 7, 6, 5. and
Timmy's
4
lying on my
are
bed, but
the
thanks a lot
photos
for that,
4
Al.
through 8 depicted in photo 3.
I'm trying to get to where
Yes.
there's that additional tissue fragment in the top right-hand side of the garage, but
this is that upper stain pattern in area G. It was seen in the overall photograph. Here you have stain GE1, GE2, GE3, GE4, and GE5.
anyway, I can't quite get there. Let's go to the trash
Swab
cans.
stain in the center photograph.
States 9, file 13. Sir, what does that depict?
These are the garbage cans that were found inside of the garage at 69 Wells. They were in the corner of the right-hand bay. The garage door would be on.
Now, what's extraordinary for me is you've got a window right over the garbage cans, which means theoretically he was committing a crime and someone could see him through the window. I think that the housekeeper returned at 11:30 or so. If she decided, made arrangements to come work early, bear in mind it was a weekend, he could have been caught in the middle of committing a crime, someone looking through the window. So in very many respects, this seems like quite a clumsy crime, although the disposal at the end of the day was done effectively. The steps leading up to it were really clumsy.
The right-hand side of your photograph.
And did you find anything of evidentiary value on the garbage cans?
Yes, there were flood-like stains found up and around the lids on both garbage cans.
Photograph 2, what is that?
That is a photograph of the left garbage can.
And photograph 3.
Yeah, that appears to be the left garbage can. And you can see the flood-like stains both here and here.
Photograph 4.
That is a photograph, I refer to my report to get left or right.
If it would refresh your recollection,
Yes.
please.
Just want to see who's testifying here.
Your Honor, I'll wait for the jury and then I'll call this one.
Does anyone know? I actually didn't get this far when I reviewed this. So that's her, Michelle Troconis. You can see she's got earphones in. She's not, her first language isn't English. She's not that fluent in English either. Oh, is that the housekeeper? Let's hear what she's got to say.
Counsel stipulate to the presence of all of the jurors.
Yes, Judge. Your Honor, the state calls Lauren Almeida.
This should be interesting. The housekeepers always know what's going on, right? There's so much to learn from the housekeepers in the Ramsey case. There's quite a lot to learn from the Ocean Club staff in the McCann case. Quite an attractive housekeeper. What about the housekeeper in the Alex Murdoch case?
Right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Remember there was a nanny that rode over Fotis's mother.
Almeida.
I'm not quite sure what her name was, but that's also part of this case.
Well, there's no need for a business address. You may be seated. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Almeida.
Afternoon.
Ms. Almeida, how old are you?
32.
And where did you grow up?
Newington, Connecticut.
Who do you currently live with?
I live with the DULOS kids.
And did you graduate high school?
I did.
Which high school did you attend?
Newington High School.
Could you just keep your voice up just a little bit?
Newington High School.
And did you also attend college?
Yes.
Where did you go to school?
University of Connecticut.
And what did you study at the University of Connecticut?
Psychology.
Did you graduate?
Yes.
What year did you graduate?
2013.
And you mentioned that you currently live with the DULOS children.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know someone by the name of Jennifer DULOS?
Yes.
When was the last time you saw or spoke to Jennifer DULOS?
May 24, 2019.
And did you know someone by the name of Fotis DULOS?
Yes.
How did you know Jennifer and Fotis DULOS?
I nannied.
What's interesting here is that the nanny didn't call 911. Now, as far as I know, the nanny arrived at the house at 11:30 and didn't seem to notice anything. And the friends called 911, not the nanny. It's just quite interesting to note that.
For them starting in September of 2012.
Were Jennifer and Fotis DULOS married?
Yes.
When you met them in September of 2012, where were they living?
4 Jefferson Crossing in Farmington.
Where was Mr. DULOS originally from?
Greece.
Did he speak English?
Yeah.
Did he speak with an accent?
Yeah.
Where was Jennifer DULOS originally from?
New York.
And you mentioned the DULOS children. How many children did the DULOS family have?
5.
And what are the children's names?
You have Petros, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel.
And could you give the jury their age ranges currently?
Yep. Currently, Petros and Theodore are 17, Christian and Constantine are 15, and Noel is 13.
And you mentioned that Petros and Theodore are 17 and Constantine and Christian are
15.
15. Are they twins?
We did a lot of puzzles, magnetiles, and games, board games was a lot. They like to play pretend.
And what days of the week were you, well, I guess I should ask a preliminary question. Did you
So now
accept
get
the job?
beyond the
Yes.
talk about the
And
children.
at that point, did you become the sole babysitter or nanny for the children?
I guess I became like the main one, but there were still some people that would come in, or sometimes there would be 2 of us, mostly on the weekends, because the kids were in school or they were like at least in preschool, so it's easier with just with one. But
And what days of the week were you working for the family at this point now that you're a full-time employee?
I think it was like Monday through Saturday, so I always worked a weekend day, but it was like half a day, so I wouldn't go in until like maybe like 11 or 12.
When you say half a day, you're referring to the weekend day?
No, the weekend day was like a full day, from morning to night. So during the week while the kids were in school, I didn't have to show up like as early as I would on the weekend.
And what was a typical workday for you as the nanny?
Well, the younger ones, it's like, helping feed them or help.
So what's quite interesting with what she's saying is that she would work 6 days a week. But if you think about it, when does a murderer have the opportunity to commit this crime? Well, when the kids aren't at school and also when the housekeeper isn't there, right? So one does sort of wonder, what time did she normally arrive at work on a weekday? And perhaps the answer is 11:30. And so that was why the perpetrator was rushed. He had only between 8 and 11:30 to complete his crime. And he would also not want to leave it until the last moment, right? So the housekeeper was something the perpetrator would be very wary of, that he doesn't want to be there when she gets there.
Helping Jennifer if they had like certain activities that day. Just playing with them, keeping them busy, playing outside, giving them baths. I would help with dinner, help with like cleaning up after them.
During this time period, did you ever go on vacation with the family?
Yes,
Where did you go on vacation with the family?
all the places.
Yes.
So I've gone to St. Bart's with them. I've been to Florida. I've been to Greece a few times. I went to Virginia once with Fotis. We went to Colorado.
Did both Jennifer and Mr. DULOS attend these vacations?
Not all of them.
All right. And when you say not all of them, who would not attend?
Jennifer.
And did Mr. DULOS ever travel without the children or Jennifer?
Yeah.
Can you describe the dynamic between Mr. DULOS and his children?
Yeah, I mean, when they were younger, they kind of just, they listened to whatever their dad said. they didn't get a lot of time with their dad, so their time was mostly on the weekend, and I was with them most of the time on the weekend. So they did whatever Fotis asked them to do. But yeah, that was like the main time that he spent with the kids.
How often would Mr. DULOS travel without the family?
A lot, where I don't know the exact days, but enough where it was, you could tell it was a little odd how often he was traveling.
Could you describe the dynamic between Jennifer and the children?
Yeah, it was very silly, her relationship with the kids. They always wanted to be next to mommy. It was just kind of what it was. And she would sing to them and laugh at them. And she never raised her voice. She was like so soft spoken and never got angry. And she was just like incredibly nurturing.
Incredibly nurturing.
What types of activities did Jennifer like to do with the children?
Oh, she would take them to we'd go to these bounce houses all the time with Jennifer. For around the holidays, getting the Christmas tree was a really big deal, and going pumpkin picking, and she'd draw with them, do puzzles with them.
Did Jennifer like to water ski?
No.
There's a straight answer.
You had mentioned that the children did like to water ski, however. Correct?
Remember I mentioned this.
They water skied.
Okay. Did they not like to water ski?
They water skied a lot. So I saw times where they didn't want to, but still had to.
And as you
She says they had to water ski. Probably enjoyed it sometimes, didn't always enjoy the competitive element.
Describe your relationship with her.
I confided in her with a lot of things, in my personal life. I just always trusted her. She was my boss, but she was someone that, we just connected really well. We just worked well with each other. I knew what she liked, what she didn't. She knew what I was good at. We had a really good relationship.
Did you ever meet any of Jennifer's family?
Yeah.
Who have you met?
Her mom, Gloria, her father, Hilly, when he was alive, her sister, Melissa. I've met her cousins.
And you mentioned your father. Has he passed away?
Yeah.
What year did he pass away?
I think it was February of 2018, I think.
And is Gloria still alive?
Yeah.
How old is Gloria?
88.
No, I think she's 88 or 89, but I don't want to get that wrong. But she's great.
Did there come a point in time when Jennifer began confiding in you things about her relationship with Mr. DULOS?
Yeah.
Jennifer ever expressed to you her feelings on whether Mr. DULOS was paying enough attention to her?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
That's true.
Did Jennifer ever express to you a desire to avoid arguing with Mr. DULOS?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Yeah.
Would you tell the jury what she said?
She just felt like arguing with Fotis, he was harsh and she didn't like conflict. So she could never really express how she really felt because it kind of got looked over.
Now, I want to direct your attention to September of 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Did you begin working at Ford Group?
Yeah.
Wow, so that's quite interesting. So the thought that's going through my mind is, how close is she to Fotis? Also, how close was she to Fotis? Bear in mind, Fotis has had quite a few girlfriends. And was she one of Fotis's girlfriends? It's kind of hard to imagine that she wasn't, but maybe she wasn't. But now we've just found out that she worked for the Ford Group. And so one question that's hard not to think about is, did the housekeeper, or does the housekeeper, is she more loyal to Fotis or to Jennifer now? And also, irrespective of that, what do you think is her opinion of Michelle Troconis? What do you think is her opinion of Michelle Troconis?
Did Mr. DULOS, by the way, did he own Ford Group for the entire time that you babysat and nannied for the family?
From what I knew, yeah.
How did you come to begin working for Ford Group?
So
I mean, I can't help looking at her and seeing there's almost a similar basic look with the housekeeper, with Jennifer Farber, and with Michelle Troconis. They've all kind of got a similar long-haired appearance, almost like a Greek or a slightly dark appearance. She's probably Latina, but I think you know what I'm getting at.
I was working full-time for the family from May of 2013 that year. And like I said, I still didn't have like a full-time job, the nannying was. And so he just asked if I was interested in coming into Ford Group and, you know, having this opportunity. So I just decided to take it.
And were you working full-time for Ford Group after you took the job?
No, it was like half Ford Group and half being a nanny.
What type of hours were you working for Ford Group?
So usually I'd go in at like 8:30, 9 o'clock in Ford Group. And then depending on the kid's schedule, I would have to leave around 1 or 2.
So look at what we're talking about here. She's qualified as a psychologist. She's got experience as a nanny, and she's working for a construction company that's definitely not doing very well. And that's one way for a construction company not to do very well is hire a nanny as part of, I'm not quite sure what she would do there. But another person that worked for him was Michelle, and Michelle, don't think she's got any experience in the construction business. By the way, my father owned a construction company, and he certainly didn't have psychologists working for him. He certainly didn't have nannies working for him. And so I do find this quite interesting.
Basically like crossed the door and then I was with the kids until like 9-ish, 9:30.
And just to be clear, 9-ish, 9:30 at night, correct?
At night, yeah.
How many days a week were you working for Ford Group when you began being employed by DULOS?
5 days, so Monday through Friday.
And were you still nannying 6 days a week?
Yeah.
Did you have any regular days off?
Yeah, usually at that point I was having Sundays off. But if I needed like another day off, it was like with Jennifer, it was kind of easy to do that. But usually Sundays were my day off at that time.
What were your responsibilities with Ford Group?
In the beginning, it was really just like office work. I was like organizing folders, things like that. I would really.
So that's her responsibility, is organizing folders.
Like worked alongside Fotis, so I basically would follow him along to work sites, and he would show me some things because I was totally new to this whole world. And then eventually, in time, I became in charge of the punch list at Ford Group, which was when a house was built, the owners would have a list of things that they wanted to finish off, like there's a chip here or whatever, and I would be in charge of making sure that that gets done.
How did you view Mr. DULOS when you initially began working for Ford Group?
Oh, I saw him as like a role model and a mentor, and I thought at the time he's given me this really great opportunity. So I considered him a friend.
And did Mr. DULOS encourage you to go back to school?
He did, yeah.
What did he encourage you to study?
Construction management, but he also was pushing for me to get my real estate license.
Come on.
Was there a telephone number that was associated with Ford Group?
Yeah, it was Fotis's personal phone number.
When you say his personal phone number, are we talking about a landline or a cellular phone?
No, like a cellular.
And did you often see Mr. DULOS answering work-related calls or sending emails?
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. DULOS kept his cell phone with him at all times during your time working with Ford Group?
Yeah.
When you were working for Ford Group, did Jennifer ever expressed to you what her intentions were with the children? Excuse me, strike that. When you were working for Ford Group, did Jennifer ever express to you how she wanted you to handle the summers?
Yeah,
What
It
did
was-
she say?
kind of said that.
Well, did Jennifer ever express to you how she wanted you to handle the children during the summers? Well, the question is, did she express to you how she wanted you to handle the children? Overruled.
You can answer.
Okay. Yeah, I would because the kids wouldn't be in school, so I would be with the kids full time.
And how many employees did Ford Group have when you began working for them?
Not a lot. It was very small, so like a handful.
When you say handful, can you just be a little bit more specific for the members?
Yes, I would. I guess we'd have to count. I would say like 5 or 6, maybe.
So that's quite interesting. Ford Group has got like 5 employees. She's one of them. And I'm wondering when a particular question is going to be asked, and if it's going to be asked, we'll see.
Was Pavel Gumiani one of the employees?
Yep.
What was his role with, actually, before I ask that, when did he begin working for Ford Group to your knowledge?
Oh, to my knowledge, I don't know. He was there when I started, even just babysitting before I ever even worked for Ford Group, but I don't know when he started. But
Okay.
and he knew the family for a while. That's all I knew.
So by the time you began working for Ford Group, he was already working for the Ford Group, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was his role with the company?
He was a project manager. He kind of did everything, to be honest.
Did Jennifer know Mr. Gumiani as well?
Yep.
Would he assist her around the house?
Yeah.
How would he assist her around the house?
He would change out the light bulbs when they went out. He would build, I know he built they had this very beautiful playscape in the backyard. I know he built that. He would even sometimes help pick us up from the airport after a trip.
Did Jennifer ever work for Ford Group?
Not that I know.
That's interesting. Jennifer never works for the Ford Group. She obviously didn't need to, but it's interesting that she didn't. Think about it. Jennifer's housekeeper or nanny works for the Ford Group. Fotis's mistress works for the Ford Group. And Jennifer was quite interested in beautiful places, and it's quite interesting that she wasn't actually involved in that business.
And you'd mentioned that Mr. DULOS was a role model to you during this time.
Mhm.
Why did you consider him to be a role model?
When I first started working, he was just incredibly nice. He made me feel comfortable. He was funny. He, was fresh out of college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it sounded like I was getting this really great opportunity, even though it had nothing to do with any of the work I've ever done. And it seemed like he just wanted to push me and, make me better.
And did there come a point in time when the dynamic between Jennifer and Mr. DULOS began to change from when you first met them?
Yeah.
Could you describe how the dynamic changed for the jury?
The big dynamic change was in March of 2017, which is when Jennifer found out about his affair. And a few months after that, it would totally changed.
So I want to direct your attention now to March of 2017.
So a question that I think's hard not to ask is, did she know about the affair before Jennifer did? Bearing in mind, she's quite close to Fotis. She's working with him, and Michelle's also in the picture. Did she not know about this affair? How did Jennifer find out about the affair? And it's quite a ethically difficult question to ask, but does this housekeeper slash nanny have a responsibility to tell Jennifer anything? What do you think?
Dean, did you take a trip with the DULOS family?
Yeah.
And where did y'all go?
The kids had a 2-week break, and so the first week we spent in Aspen, Colorado, and then we flew to Miami for the second week.
Who went on the trip?
The first week was myself, 5 kids, Jennifer Fotis, and his friend Mark Masiello.
And I think you already mentioned this, but why does the family decide to take a trip in March as opposed to?
Oh, the kids, their school vacation, they get 2 weeks off in March, so that's why we went in March.
Where were the kids going to school at the time?
They were going to Renbrook. It's in Farmington.
I'm sorry?
It's in Farmington.
And where in Colorado did you vacation?
It was Aspen.
And what types of activities did you and the children do while on the trip?
I just want to
Well, they ski.
stop and deal with this. Brianna says she's got no obligation to say anything. It's an interesting thing to say when you think about the Watts family murders. What if Shanann had been told by someone, perhaps by one of Watts's co-workers, that he was having an affair? Would she have come home earlier from South Carolina? The end of this whole thing was that someone was murdered. So is the lesson you learn from this that perhaps you should warn someone when something's happening, or is it all's fair in love and war? What do you guys think?
They're very good snow skiers, so they would ski.
I do agree she was in a very
Noelle, who was
precarious
younger
position.
than everyone else. We kind of would just kind of hang out, walk around the town a little bit. She would ski a little bit, or whoever was like tired, they would like basically come back with Jennifer and I, and we would do like the hot cocoa stuff. And but they skied a lot.
And how old was Noelle at this point?
6 maybe.
And where did you stay in Aspen?
Jennifer's father won a house through a charity auction, so we stayed there for a week.
And did there come a point in time during the trip where Mr. DULOS told the group he had taken the children to an adult club?
Yeah,
Who was present for this conversation?
myself and Jennifer.
How did Jennifer react upon hearing this?
She like shocked because they were little and they were going to a day club. And so she was like, we were both kind of like disgusted, I guess is the word.
And what was Mr. DULOS' demeanor like as he was relaying this information?
He was excited that he like paid off the people to let his kids into this day club where, yeah, he seemed really happy about it.
And approximately how long did you guys stay in Colorado?
It was about a week.
And at some point, did you travel to Miami?
Yep.
And I assume you flew?
We flew, yeah.
And who went to Miami?
So myself, the 5 kids, Jennifer, Fotis, and then Jennifer's mom, Gloria, met us in Miami.
And where did you stay in Miami initially?
Initially, we stayed at the W hotel there.
And describe some of your daily activities in Miami. I assume you're not skiing
Yeah,
anymore.
no snow skiing, but there was water skiing. So they went from snow skiing and they went to Miami to water ski. So really, that was the activity.
And where would the family ski?
It's a Miami ski club.
And who would go to the ski club?
Myself, the kids. Sometimes Noelle would stay back with Jennifer. Jennifer would not go, and Fotis would go.
And during this trip, did Jennifer discuss her relationship with Mr. DULOS with you?
She did.
So what's quite interesting here is bear in mind that Michelle Troconis, her relationship with Fotis happens through water skiing in part. And here you have Fotis going water skiing with the kids and the nanny, and Jennifer isn't part of that.
Well, at this time, did Jennifer discuss her relationship with Mr. DULOS with you? The answer is either yes or no. Overruled.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And what did she tell you?
Well, what did she tell you about the relationship?
I'll rephrase. What did she tell you about the relationship?
Well, that question is very broad. All calls for an answer that could be a narrative. So the court is going to sustain the objection, but allow you to pursue the line.
You mentioned earlier that Jennifer had found out about the affair. Do you recall testifying to that?
Yes.
What did Jennifer say to you about the affair when you were in Miami?
Objection.
Well,
You notice the tension here. The defense are getting very jittery. The nanny is sort of scratching her face. I can't help noticing the nanny. I really don't want to make this comparison, but I've just done statement analysis of Chris Watts, and he kind of does this. She's kind of doing it as well. I really don't want to compare the two, but as soon as you do that with your mouth, what you're trying to do is kind of compartmentalize your emotions. It's just a way of trying to hold back your feelings. And so in a way that your feelings are passing through your mind and your heart, and would also register in your facial expression by controlling almost the gate to those feelings. It's a way to almost slow them down, right? And I just think it's interesting seeing that, and I'm sure a lot of us sometimes do that as well. I've just done it now, right? Doesn't mean you're a murderer. It just means that you are sequestrating some of your thoughts and feelings in an area where there's a lot kind of behind it.
that's going to be overruled.
She told me she believed that Fotis was having an affair.
So what's interesting is it seems to be happening now, like they are on vacation and they're in Miami, and this is when she says it. And one question is, where's Michelle Troconis in this story? Is she water skiing at this Miami ski club? I guess we might find out.
Did she say why she believed that?
She just said she had this feeling he's been acting weird, and I didn't really believe her at first.
And when you say you didn't really believe her, what do you mean by that?
At that time, I had a good relationship with Fotis, and I believed him to be an honest guy, and I couldn't imagine him having an affair where there's 5 little kids involved.
So what did you say to her?
I said, no.
Ground. But what this witness said is not hearsay. This witness is testifying about what she said, not what another declarant said.
It's an out-of-court statement now.
Well, it's an out-of-court statement, but this witness is the declarant. The witness is.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get too much more. It's getting like quite interesting. I don't think we're going to get too much more. We're another about 4 minutes, but it feels like the judge is about to make like a long speech. I do get the feeling the the housekeeper is going to be asked to talk about arriving at the residence on the 24th of May, and also the timeline between this holiday and then. So that should be quite interesting. Anyway, let's see if there's any more that comes out. Basically, the housekeeper said that Jennifer told her that Fotis was having an affair, and she didn't believe it. And you kind of get the feeling at this point she has a really good relationship with Fotis. She is sees him as a role model, looks up to him, likes him, and is finding it hard to believe what Jennifer's saying. And Jennifer's not giving her very much information. She says it's based on a feeling. Well, what more than that?
Telling the jury what she told Jennifer. She has personal knowledge about what she told Jennifer. Overruled.
What did you say to Jennifer?
I told her I don't think that's true.
What was her demeanor like during this conversation?
She was very anxious, like kind of tight. And she seemed upset.
Was anyone else present for this conversation?
Oh yeah, her mom, Gloria.
That's quite a big moment to say to your nanny / housekeeper that I think my husband's having an affair with her mother present. You would imagine that she'd already told Gloria. I wonder whether Gloria is going to testify. But you can imagine if she's telling the housekeeper, hasn't she already told her mother? And what does her mother think? What does her mother say?
Now, during this trip, did you meet someone named Michelle Troconis?
Yep.
Do you see Michelle?
There you have it. So the Michelle Troconis is on this trip, is on this holiday. And well, sure enough, Jennifer's right. She is having an affair. He is having an affair. And Jennifer's there. Sorry, Michelle's there. And isn't that why they went to Miami to begin with? And I couldn't help thinking when they went from Colorado to Miami, thinking that's kind of weird. Why are you going to Miami? And then also thinking, because as far as I know, Michelle Troconis had links to Miami. She was living in Miami. So was that why he went there? It's quite a big thing, snow skiing and then water skiing. It's like a double billing.
Michelle Troconis in the courtroom?
Yep.
Would you just point her out and tell us what color shirt she has on?
Beige.
Well, there you have a very, sorry for laughing, but you have a very clear indication of what she thinks of her. Kind of points at her like this. There's definitely some contempt there. And she said earlier she could never believe that Fotis would do this, even though he had 5 small children. And anyway, there she is saying, I see you in front of me.
Judge, she identified the defendant.
Thank you. The record will reflect.
Where
Well,
did you?
before you proceed, you have about 2 minutes perhaps. This is an appropriate point at which to conclude today, because you're about to go into other matters that are more significant.
Okay, so we are going to leave it at that. Very interesting, isn't it? We're getting a lot of insight from the housekeeper who was right there and the nanny. So we'll pick this up with the housekeeper tomorrow. I might actually go live when the case is live, because this to me is quite an interesting witness, and I think she's going to have quite a few insights. So we may go live at the time that this goes live. I think it's 9. Is it 9 local time, Stephanie? Yeah, it is a nice cliffhanger. Is it 9 local time? 8:30, 9 o'clock. Anyway, I'll let you guys know in advance. I'm definitely not going to cover a full court day for 7 hours. Certainly not at this stage. So we'll cover the nanny and we'll see what happens after that. I do want to still share with you my notes on what I think is a potential motive. So I might cover that tomorrow, depending on what happens tomorrow. You know, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly what they're going to talk about. I do think the housekeeper coming to the house and does she notice anything out of place? That's going to be a very interesting narrative. 10 o'clock Eastern. Okay, so be here at 10 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, and I'll see you guys there. 10 a.m. Okay. I wanted to tell you guys. Did you guys know that I'm drinking filtered rainwater? So this last sip that I'm going to take is rainwater that I've captured that's passed through a Brita filter. So, you know, it's good for trees. Maybe it's good for human beings as well. It definitely has a softer taste than the municipal water. It definitely is a softer taste. Yeah, so it is about 12 hours from now. So I hope you guys have found this live stream interesting. They're not a terribly large amount of you here, less than 200. More than twice this number were tuning in for the Watts case, Sermon on the Porch. I'll be doing part 2 to that probably on Saturday. So we'll have a look at that. I am definitely a little bit concerned that the number is so low, but it is after the fact. So maybe if we go live when this goes live, there'll be a little bit more interest. We'll see. Thanks a lot, Kimchi. And do I give it to Timmy too? I did today. He often drinks the rainwater himself, like he elects to do that himself anyway. So, but do you drink filtered rainwater? Where's that comment? Do you drink filtered rainwater? Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm going to try and cut this off just before the 3-hour mark. Thanks a lot, Tegan. Thanks a lot to all the mods that are here. Iceland, thanks for joining us as well. It's also good to have a couple of scouts with us, like Matt. Thanks for joining us as well. Mel asked, how does it taste? It's just got a softer taste, if that makes sense. It's almost, I don't know how to say it otherwise. This is municipal water. I can't say any more than that the rainwater's got just a softer taste. Last couple of comments. Bryn Jones says good night from Wales while you are up late. Chelsea says, thanks everyone. We had a good chat. Okay, so that's it from me. I'll see you guys bright, not that early, but I'll see you guys a little bit later for day 4 in this case. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.